This episode is sponsored by Petra Kolb. Hello and welcome back to Film Pro Productivity and Success, the podcast that helps film professionals and other creative people to live a more focused, effective and hopefully a happy life. My name is Carter Ferguson and this is episode 94, Fast, Cheap, Good. So in last week's show, I looked into how creativity can sometimes be elusive and talked about the problems and solutions that can be applied when we find it difficult to call up creativity on demand. That's the name of the episode. And if that's something that interests you, then please go back and have a listen. Richard Branson said that every success story is a tale of constant adaption, revision, and change. And today's episode is the first of 4 shorter test episodes that are going out this season as a kind of a trial run for a format which I hope to apply to shows 101 through 150. And today's episode highlights a simple rule that can be applied to virtually any project that we set out to do. It's known in business terms as the project management triangle. I don't know as that, but my research tells me it is. And that triangle uses the terms cost, schedule, and scope. But in effect, what this comes down to is exactly the same thing. The rule I'm talking about is this: good, fast, cheap. Pick 2, which might be worded more traditionally as you get what you pay for, but good, fast, cheap, pick 2 makes better sense of the idea that there simply has to be compromise somewhere. And what it comes down to is basically this: if you want something that's cheap and fast, the chances are that it's probably not going to be very good. And if you want something cheap and good, the chances are that you really can't expect it to be done very quickly. And if you want something fast, but you also need it to be really good, you're pretty much guaranteed that it is not going to be cheap, okay? I find this simple rule particularly applicable to video projects, so let me give you some examples of this. In 2019, I co-produced a film project for an artist who was coming up from London to shoot in Glasgow, that's where he's from. And the company that they'd hired to do it had let them down in some way, and so they approached a friend of mine who brought me on board to try and get this done. But shooting had to commence for them in something like 8 days. And we pulled out all of the stops and we made it happen, but we had to drop everything and pull it together so quickly that we really had to pay premium prices for the equipment and the people that we needed to bring in to get it done. And if we'd had more time, we could have done it cheaper, basically. We could have shopped around, we could have got better prices, we could have warned people that it was coming up, and we could have scheduled our own lives to make it easier for us as well. But in the end, it just wasn't possible, as the fast turnover that they required worked against us. And on the flip side of that, if I'm producing a film on my own, I can generally do it pretty cheaply because I can take my time over finding the locations and finding the props and the costumes and the actors and the crew and the equipment, and I can produce something of a fairly high standard because I've spread it over 2 or 3 months, where I myself will do a lot of the smaller tasks that on a shorter timescale I just wouldn't be able to do. And that's pretty much how all of my short films can come together. And I'm not saying that all of my short films are great because of this, by the way, as there's always mitigating factors. And if you listen to last week's show, you'll know that creativity on demand is not always reliable. But as a general guiding principle, this little phrase, this rule, will be quite helpful to you. Of course, this principle, this rule, as it were, assumes the given situation allows you to pick your priorities. But the trouble with creative projects, of course, is that we are often building them from nothing, and it's hard to see problems before they actually arise. Compromise and flexibility are essential tools for us if we're to survive and thrive in this creative world. So I'm just offering this up to you. You are possibly already aware of it, but it seemed a good topic for a short test episode. I hope you found it helpful. But I'll recap now by saying simply that there's always a trade-off. Cheap and fast equals lower quality work. Fast and good equals expensive. And good and cheap equals not happening anytime soon. So with this in mind, you have to ask yourself perhaps, what are your priorities? As a call to action, I'd love to hear your feedback on this episode. You can contact me via Twitter at FilmProProdPod, Facebook at FilmProProductivity, or directly via the contact page on filmproproductivity.com. And in the next episode, which is another short one, it's coming out this Wednesday, I will be talking about batching, and that is the act of grouping tasks together so that you do them all at once instead of switching between tasks that take place in different areas. And actually, before I finish, I'm trying to keep it short. I think I'm just over 5 minutes, so I'm not doing badly. I do have an example of how trying to do something fast and cheap can lead to bad results, and it's this episode, because it was a shorter episode and I've got a lot to do. I'm doing a season of 9 at the moment. I didn't rush the episode. I did my research, I wrote my notes, I had my thoughts, I knew exactly what was going to come down, and I do a fair amount of research on these, and I wrote them down. And I reused this, my notes from this as a template for the next episode for batching, which is already done. I'm going to record that in a wee minute. But when I came back to record it, I had arsed it up. I had accidentally deleted half of it at some point, just from trying to rush on to the next one. So I do have an example of that. When I was racking my brains about what I could say, but that's actually what happened with this episode. I had to stop partially into this when I realised I've deleted half my notes on this, and it was a bit of a problem. And another thing I'll just mention very quickly, I can say arse without bleeping it out, because I ran a poll on Twitter a couple of weeks ago, and it seems that most of you, 95% of you, don't care if I swear or not. It's not my intention to swear a lot, but I will be moving forward without using the horn, the honking horn, which some of you will love. Maybe I'll chuck it in on occasion just for fun, but yeah, I'm going to proceed with this. I have to mark the podcast now as explicit, because I will occasionally swear, but that's a new thing that's come in as well. Anyway, moving on, today's final quote is from Larry Wall, who is the guy that is attributed to first stating this idea, and he said, "There's a saying in the software design industry: good, fast, cheap. Pick two." Now take control of your own destiny, keep on shooting, and join me next time on Film Pro Productivity and Success. The music that you're listening to right now is Adventures by Himitsu, and you can view the show notes for this episode on the official website. That's filmproproductivity.com. Go check them out. And you can follow my personal account on Twitter and Instagram at fight_director, or follow the show on Twitter at FilmProProdPod, or on Facebook at FilmProProductivity. Please continue to support the show by subscribing, spreading the word. Word of mouth is a big thing for me, and leaving an awesome review. See you next time.